I do want to start the show here by talking about Blue Beetle and
Okay.
its box office because it was reported that it only grossed $25 million domestically, which is a low
Yeah.
for the DCU/DCEU, coming in even lower than Black Adam, which is unfortunate. Worldwide, it's not a whole lot better. It's only at 43.5 million at
Yeah.
this point, which is really unfortunate because, like I noted, at least with my audience, I think this is indicative of what we've seen online as well across the
Yeah.
board. Those that did go see it anyway have really liked it, and I hope that. Like, my biggest hope here is that it has an Elemental type run. I mean, that
Oh,
talk
I've
about
been hearing a
another
lot of people
summer
say that it
narrative.
could word of mouth carry this one like it did with Elemental.
I mean, because Elemental was also dug a grave and left out in the desert on its own. Like,
Well,
people
let's
left that for dead.
let's look at the comparisons, right? Both movies arguably didn't have the best marketing campaigns to support them.
Mhm.
I felt the same way about Blue Beetle. I felt like we had maybe 2 trailers that were barely even really pushed. I never really noticed many TV spots or any other form of viral marketing or just online digital marketing. So they have similar, I guess, lack of strategies, if you want to say
Mhm.
that. And that is unfortunate. But Elemental, when that first came out, we already saw headlines saying this movie is a bomb for Pixar. It's a bomb. And
29.6 million was its opening domestically, which
yeah,
is not a whole lot higher than what we just saw with Blue
no,
Beetle.
especially for an expensive animated movie like a Pixar movie.
Yes.
And look what happened. Look what happened to Elemental. A couple weeks went by and people started thinking, wait a minute, this might have some legs. Did we speak a little bit too soon here?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
right now, a couple of months later, because it came out on June 16th, it is now August 21st. As of right now, it has grossed $151 million
Yeah.
domestically and $458 million worldwide.
See, there you go. That's a little bit
That's not
more
bad.
than 29, right?
That's a little bit more than 29. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that
Yeah.
is a really great slow burn, maybe pun intended.
Nice.
And I do think there's some interesting comparisons with that film and Blue Beetle. I mean, Elemental is an allegory for immigration. And I think
Fair.
there's something to be related there with the Hispanic community. And in some ways, it's also a part of what we see in Blue Beetle. And the familial component, I think there's some incredible similarities with both of those films. So
Just
I do
tell
hope
timeless stories about family, and you've got a hit on
Yeah.
your hands. It just might take a while to get there.
it might take a while to get there. And you're right that the marketing for Blue Beetle wasn't very good to begin with. And then the Hollywood strikes happen.
Yeah.
And now the cast cannot go out there and promote the
That's
movie.
a huge part of it, unfortunately.
that-
You're right.
There's no doubt that's been a hindrance on this. In fact, I believe there was a report over the weekend where studios even admitted, and I can't remember the exact percentage, but something to the effect of that they think their movies are taking like a 15-25% hit on the actors not promoting their movies, which
I mean, it wouldn't
is
surprise me.
hilarious irony.
I mean, literally, the majority of word of mouth for a lot of upcoming movies gets spread on, let's say, like morning talk shows, for instance, when actors are there promoting their
Yeah,
upcoming
late night,
Yeah, late
that
night.
sort
I
of
mean, it's not
stuff.
just morning talk shows. I only reference that as an example because
For
sometimes we have
sure.
it on in the
There's
background while I'm
various
working my
kinds.
9 to 5.
Yep.
But that's a huge part of it. So if the estimation is 15 to 25% of a box office dip because of that, I don't think that's hyperbole. I think that
Yeah.
is entirely possible. I don't know the math or the figures, but I would not be surprised if it were the case.
And it goes to show that, at least for the stars, the actors' roles for these movies do not end when the director says cut and we're done with this movie.
No,
When it's
no.
time to release it, they have to go out and promote it. That is part of their job.
So the moral is pay them. Don't replace
Pay
them with
them.
AI.
Pay them what they're worth. If you're admitting that these actors not going out and promoting movie is costing you at least an additional 20%, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You're admitting that up front. Like, it blows my mind. And you're still like, nah, never mind. We're not going to pay them. It truly astounds the mind. But,
Oh my gosh.
with all of that said,
My brain is soup right now.
it is unfortunate, but I do hope that it does have some word of mouth, because I do think it is really fun. It's also the end of summer, and as we somewhat joked about earlier, a lot of families are getting ready to go back to school. So it perhaps just didn't come out at a great time. But if you look at what's coming up in September, there's not really a lot that's coming out that screams, oh my gosh, I have to go see this in theaters.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to have a ton of competition. There's the Gran Turismo movie that's coming out. That will certainly offer up some competition.
Yeah.
But when you get into September, there are a few titles for sure, especially on the smaller side of things. But when it comes to big, wide releases, I don't really see anything there that would be a huge dagger to something like Blue Beetle if it does end up having an elemental type run. Like, it really is something where word of mouth could carry this at least for another month and a half.
Yeah.
And that 25 million could rise up to, I don't know, 100 million.
I mean, if anything hurts it, maybe people will just keep going to see Barbie and Oppenheimer again.
Well, there is that.
Yeah.
I think that is certainly the case, because
I swear, when I went to see when I went to the movies the other day to see Talk to Me before we did that review, my gosh, the entire theater lobby was just filled with people in pink. This was maybe,
you still see it a lot.
This was maybe a 2 p.m. screening on a Sunday or something like that.
Yeah, Barbie obviously over $1 billion. Oppenheimer, I think, just crossed the 700 million mark.
Yeah.
And just passed Interstellar in terms of Nolan's career.
It passed another record too. I forget what it was. Isn't it in the top 5 of highest grossing 3-hour biopics or something like that?
It has to be.
It was very weird and specific statistic that was released that it's now holding in a top 5 status. I forget exactly what it was, but it's hard to see that happening
crazy.
for a movie like that.
I thought it was really funny when that Logan Paul tweet dropped this last week, and everyone lost their minds because he was talking about how it was boring. It was just men talking for 3 hours and that he left early. The funny thing about that to me is, well, I don't think that it's boring, but the whole idea that it's just people talking for 3 hours, that's not necessarily incorrect. And it's incredible that film made $700 million.
Didn't he also say that he walked out at the 18-minute mark or something?
Yeah, his thoughts on movies are invalid. Let's just clear the air.
Sadly, he has an audience.
I know. It's ridiculous.
Oh gosh, I'm not a violent person, but people like that, I want to punch in the face.
That does make the blood boil a little bit. Yes. Yeah, I do agree there. But look, that idea is very true. You go and see Oppenheimer, and yes, Nolan makes it extremely compelling. It's obviously extremely simplified to say that it's just people talking for 3 hours, but in a lot of ways it is. But Nolan makes that so engrossing and cinematic that I can see why people would go and see this multiple times in theaters. I've seen it twice.
Yeah.
I would love to go see it for a third time if I could find the time.
Again, it's not what it's about. It's how it's about.
It's how it's about. Exactly. It's a great point, Brendan. It's not that it's just 3 hours of people talking in rooms. That's what it's about. It's how no one goes about doing that. That is incredible.
So clearly we picked the right topic for this weekend.
We certainly did. All of that to say, I hope Blue Beetle goes on an elemental type run. That's kind of the moral of the story here. But yeah, the Barbenheimer thing just continues to just be this historical monster. And I'm curious how far Oppenheimer goes. Could it somehow get to $1 billion in the next
It'll be a
few months?
fist in the air moment for all critics out there.
Could you imagine?
Incredible.
And look,
Oppenheimer as $1 billion movie.
it only has 300 million more to go. And look, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I understand that's a lot. But I don't think it's impossible to say that it might get there in a few more months. By the end of the year,
I will say
maybe.
this. I'll be ecstatic. I'll be happy. I don't know if I'll be too surprised if it makes it to $1 billion. I mean, I'll be somewhat surprised just given the fact that a movie like Oppenheimer is now $1 billion movie, because I don't think people really expected that when it first came out, let alone being announced way back when. But I'm at a point now, just given the trajectory of it, and thanks to the assistance of Barbie, I could see that happening. I could see it happening.
I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, I was looking at some of the 70 millimeter IMAX screenings in the area. Now, I went to see it in 70 millimeter. It was the weekend right after my birthday, like that Friday. So, like, I don't know, the 11th or whatever it was.
And however, you saw it in IMAX before that, but it wasn't 70 millimeter,
and I had
right?
seen it in IMAX before, but it wasn't 70 millimeter.
Okay.
I just went to the first showing I possibly could because I was getting back from vacation. And I just wanted to go see it as soon as possible. But then I went a second time, saw it in 70 millimeter. And I haven't even really spoken to that. I mean, just astounding. Like, that whole experience was just remarkable.
I have no excuse because I live within 10 to 15 minutes of the Regal in King of Prussia, which has a 70 millimeter theater playing it.
Yeah.
So I have no excuse. I could take an Uber to it and be there in 10 minutes.
Definitely got to make time. It's absolutely worth it. But, you know, I say all that to say I was looking at one of the IMAX 70 millimeter that's playing in the area.
Sure.
And this was, you know, before I went to see it. And so like August 7th-ish, the next available screening that had anything open at all was August 26th, which we haven't even reached yet. So every Oppenheimer 70 millimeter showing over the last 3 weeks has been sold out for a long time.
Isn't that incredible?
And
I'm as we're talking, I'm looking at the Regal United Artists King of Prussia that I live very close to, and I'm looking at the movie times here, and I went all the way until this upcoming weekend, so almost a week from when we're recording this. There are 4 IMAX 70 millimeter screenings playing on just Friday and Saturday alone. So it's still kicking. It is still kicking,
man. People are going to see it and Barbie. I mean, at this rate, I don't know what other contenders there are for award
Best Picture
season.
and Best Director.
Like, I mean, goodness great, especially if Oppenheimer reaches $1 billion. You have 2 summer hits that aren't your typical summer blockbuster fare that get to $1 billion.
And that's the thing.
The conversation's over.
It's not like Top Gun Maverick. I mean, it sort of is, but it also isn't. But that, you know, that was a blockbuster. That was billed as a blockbuster. Yeah. It was an event for those reasons. But this is a little different, you know, especially with Oppenheimer. This is a very different type of contender you're dealing with.
Yeah, Barbie was always going to be a film that people were interested in. It was probably going to be a success.
Yeah.
But it wasn't billed as this Avengers level event.
Right. Right.
But and neither was Oppenheimer. It was a Nolan film for sure. But, you know, and we've talked about this. It was the Barbenheimer thing of it all. That's what made it an event.
I like how we said we weren't going to talk about Barbenheimer, and here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, just see.
Every time we think we get out, they pull us back in.
They pull us back in. Anyway, all of that to say, I liked Blue Beetle. I hope people go and see it. And I hope it goes on enough mental type run. Okay.